Greetings, everyone. This is Ali Hussein Kasim, and this is Ali Talks Tech. This is our second season of Ali Talks Tech, and I am excited today to have an exciting guest with me, my good friend, my brother, Mr. Peter Ndiang'ui. Peter, karibu sana. So, Ali Talks Tech is really about telling the Pan-African tech story. And you are straddling an interesting space in the Pan-African tech ecosystem, commerce as we know it. I am starting to force myself to stop using the E in commerce because really it's just commerce. What are your thoughts about that? But before you go there, just tell us a little bit about yourself, because this is both personal and business. A good friend of mine reminded me it's not about work-life balance. It's about work-life integration. Over to you, brother.
Correct. Thank you so much, Ali. Great to be here. This is probably one of the most fascinating talks that I've seen so far that is trying to tell the story from a V2 ground perspective. And so, first of all, as mentioned, my background has been lived and been breathing tech for probably the last 20 years. Started out in consulting down under in Melbourne, Sydney. And then after that, I came back to Nairobi with Naspers.
So let's step back a bit, Peter. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't gloss over the Sydney, Australia conversation because in our conversations, that is something that has shaped your career.
Yes.
Please, just give us a glimpse, a couple of minutes during your time in Sydney, apart from just going through uni.
I cannot get out of from Nairobi after my JQ at bachelor's and go do some masters in internet computing, and so therefore that becomes a critical part of my own understanding of how the world might be reshaped by the internet. Some of the case studies were quite green, especially focusing then, it was just the dot-com crash, 2000.
This is in Australia.
This is in Aussie, yeah. And, case studies involving folks like Webvan, who kind of crashed, having spent over $200 million. Those
are the early days, the early days of what we then called the dot-com crash
and bubble.
Yes.
And I think at that time, nobody saw a Google coming around. A Facebook was not even near anywhere. Amazon was struggling. I remember some Lehman Brothers, I think they were one of their bankers, claiming that they were just about to shut down. And it's ironical that it's Lehman.
These stories are interesting, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of 2002, 2003. And so I finish up. I start interning as a consultant, and somehow I find myself wanting to go back to school, do an MBA. And then I meet virtually my good friend, the late Clay Christensen, who then out of that opens the whole world of innovation dilemma and disruption and what is it. And
so you met Clay Christensen?
No, I meet him in the books, right?
Oh, you mean in the books?
and that kind of starts to make me understand.
So for my viewers, sorry to interrupt, Peter, but for my viewers, who exactly is Clay Christensen?
Yeah, so I think the late, because actually he's the late Clay Christensen is kind of the father of the thinking around disruptive innovations. And I think almost everyone who is in tech probably, in one way or the other, does talk about disruption, even though it's a cliche. Not
It's
sure.
become a cliche.
Exactly, yeah. But I think the foundational understanding of what that means, and when I started to internalize it, that started becoming a foundational kind of analytical view of how I saw things. And so I joined in a management consulting firm. I actually start living in Melbourne. And it's in the early days of digitization of banks. And so I get to work on a project of one of the first kind of neobank or a branchless bank, but it's an offshoot of an existing legacy bank.
What year is this?
This is 2006.
2006. Wow.
7, actually.
2006, 2007.
And at the same time, this is also the time that the telcos are becoming more and more mobile. You see, in our case here in Kenya, the way we think about telcos, it's almost like telcos started with mobile telephony.
Yes.
Because if you look at the data on the tele density that we had around 2002, it was about one line for every 100 people.
So, Peter, I'm here to tell you that I'm old enough to remember Kenya Post and Telecommunication Services. Gentlemen and ladies, if you are listening to me and if you are watching us, there was a time in this country where the post office, the mobile phone companies, Safaricom, Airtel, Telcom Kenya, all of them, including the regulator, the Communications Authority of Kenya, was one company, KP&TC.
Correct.
Kenya Post and Telecommunications Company. I remember my father booking a phone at our farm in Kilifi and taking 2 years to get that line.
That's right.
I am not kidding you. 2 years. And then when the phone came, it was not even the rotary. It used to have that thing. So I still remember those conversations around teledensities. And today, completely different story.
Very different story. But important to remember that actually in our high school days, you'd actually queue with like 20 people in front of you. And all those booths never had a door. Actually, I don't know how it used to happen that none of the public booths.
I can tell you my sons that have never seen a phone booth. They're here somewhere. I can ask them. But they've never seen maybe just as a meme on Instagram.
That's right. and if you sit there and somebody's actually calling and you can hear each and everything that they are asking for.
Because everybody's lining up, waiting.
And by the way, after I graduate from JQ or just a year before, I'm interning and we are working on a project to expand the number of booths so that we can improve the tele-density in the country. And actually, I'm not kidding you. The idea was to move from 1 to 100 people who are connected to a line to at least 5.4 by 2015.
Okay.
And so the only way was to go building boards in Othaya, Karatina, all those small sub-county towns and try and fix these things. So it's amazing to think about, how are people thinking about what is going to
How even the structure
Yeah.
of how we look at data, the foundation
Yeah.
has completely been disrupted. Now I'm using that term
Yeah.
in the real sense, not as a cliche.
Correct. Yeah. So telcos. So the difference in Aussie was that you had almost like 75% of the households having a telephone, and so therefore, the idea of moving people to mobile was more of a really. I'm not in such a hurry to buy a mobile phone.
No, I look.
You
I
see,
mean,
well, in here it was I don't have a phone,
yes.
so it's a completely different world.
Yeah.
So I started working for one of the telcos, and I'm doing what today is called data science.
Yes.
But then the world then was business intelligence.
Yes.
And so we were building all these data warehouses, and kind of to make sure that the revenue for the telco can improve. So I start kind of my journey there. But then one project that changes my perspective is a project to try and help one of the media companies to acquire or to invest in a real estate portal. And so that introduces me to the world of e-commerce. And the world of classifieds. And I start seeing,
so this now is in Aussie.
We're still in Melbourne.
Still in Melbourne, Aussie.
So that kind of starts to show me, you mean newspapers are dying, but there are some guys on the other side who are building.
Which year?
This is 2007. Then.
2007.
Yeah. 8. And when I start to realize that, hey, people can actually build a business, classifieds, newspapers, online, some guys working in a garage, and boom, seems like it's growing. So just like any other Kenyan would do, I start thinking, hey, huko Nairobi, when people start looking for land and properties, how do they do it? And that's when I start thinking about having a portal for properties
in
here
Kenya.
in Nairobi. Yes. And I actually start one, and it was called myproperty.co.ke then. This is around 2009. It's probably one of the earliest property portals in Kenya. Yeah. Now.
This is 2009. Now you're back in Kenya.
I'm not back.
Or you are doing it?
I'm doing it. I'm moonlighting.
So you basically, this wortual working.
Exactly. It's like
kitambo.
Exactly, yes. Like telephony family.
Yes.
So we start that platform, and it starts to gain some traction. I can see traffic growing. 2009, I see a blog, and I remember this main blogger today who used to run it, and it used to get all the newspaper jobs and post them online
on the blog, scrapping basically.
Scrapping, yeah, and
scrapping all the data from newspapers.
Exactly, but the traffic. When I started now to look at the traffic, it was massive, and then it used to they had this mailbox. Where every morning you'd get an alert on the jobs that have been put in on the platform.
Posted, yeah.
So
this is not even 2010.
This is 09, around there. So I contact the guy and I ask him whether he would be interested in me buying it. This is like M&A 101.
Digital Mugunda.
So the guy says, yeah, no problem. How much do you want to pay? Hey. So we say, okay, we negotiate. It comes to a couple of $1,000. And we agree. And I come to Nairobi in 2009, actually. Was it 10? I think 10. And we agree. And I purchased the blog.
You actually executed that deal.
Oh, yes. So now I have 2 platforms. I have a job platform.
And you have a property.
And I have a property platform. So
Ulianza mapema, boss.
this now launches me into kind of running a digital business,
properties business.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so the only thing that happens is that we don't agree with this guy that, hey, man, like, now that you've been running this thing,
why don't you continue running it?
That's number one. So I hired 2 guys, and just opposite Coptic Hospital, there's
on Gong Road.
Some offices around there. There's one, like, it's a very, very filthy, like a servant quarters place there. Yes. And we hire that place, and I have 2 guys, and they start working from there.
So the proverbial startup in a garage.
Yeah.
Literally.
That's right. So they're working from there, and their work is, you're going to source jobs, scrape them, put them on the blog, and you're going to
So are you scraping
on newspapers?
Newspapers like this.
You get the newspaper in the morning and literally type the jobs.
Wow, tumetoka mbali.
Yeah.
And then you're basically keying in the,
Their work is actually data entry.
Wow.
Yeah. Because the only way to create this traffic is that you have to have content.
Correct.
I mean, this is 2-sided marketplaces 101.
Okay, so let's step back a bit.
Yeah.
And expound on this two-sided marketplace concept, or today is not even two-sided anymore.
It's n-sided.
It's multi-sided. Marketplace.
Exactly. Let's use both the job and property, because they are both two-sided. In fact, now a lot of them are n-sided or multi-sided. So those days, to start a marketplace, fundamentally, you have a chicken and egg issue. The person who needs to come into the marketplace needs to find content. If you're going to charge somebody something because you want them to advertise, they need eyeballs. Those eyeballs only come because there's content. Now, here you are. This is early days of the internet. Even the job folks, the recruiters, don't understand, why should I post a job online?
I remember my earliest work online was as head of business development for Pan-African jobs portal.
Okay.
My Jobs for Africa.
Aha. Exactly. In fact, there's one other one called My Jobs Are. So
yes.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. So now you need to convince the recruiter to give you content. Hey, this is to give you content, not for them to pay to advertise. Right? And so that you have content that you can then say, hey, we have a job here, come and have a look. So that then you can have the other side of the content consumer.
Correct.
So, like, where do you start? The only way to do that is you have to hold one side down, the supply side, and say, okay, we know newspapers are the dominant places where these jobs are usually advertised. And people pay there, but they're not going to give you for free to put them online. So you go to the newspaper and scrape the job.
You just buy the newspaper and
scrape. And then now you have content. Now you can start building up traffic.
And the newspapers did not understand what was going on.
Or they see you almost like a very scrappy thing. I mean, they don't even care that you're doing this, right?
Fast forward to today.
Yeah.
So you've explained to us your marketplace, your two-sided marketplace.
Yeah.
Tell us what you're up to today.
Yeah. So let's finish the story from Melbourne.
Cool. Let's take it back a bit.
Take back a bit. I start doing these portals, and then one guy that I met when I was doing the due diligence, they were doing due diligence for this media house, decides to come back to Nairobi. In fact, the guy is kind of is also the fifth generation Brit. So every time I go to the office, this particular office in Aussie, he's speaking in Swahili and he's speaking to me in Swahili. So the first time, I think he has the tourist Swahili, but then the guy starts to go very, very deep. At some point, he even starts to throw in some Gikoyo words.
What?
It's all
Like, who is this guy?
Who is this guy? So after some conversations, we come to know each other. The guy comes from Eldoret. It's kind of a fifth generation Brits. He was a CIO of that particular business, and then
in Australia.
Yeah, in Aussie, yeah. And he had kind of moved around the world. He was in Japan, then he came down under. So we become very good friends, and we start having coffees and him. So one day I see in the financial review, and so has decided to quit this particular, because it was a listed business, and he's moving back to Kenya. Man, he's never told me.
He's at that level.
He's at that level. So I call him up and ask him, hey,
what the hell are you doing?
What are you doing? He tells me, man, I didn't want to say this. I just wanted to make this decision without anyone else interfering with me.
Because I made my decision.
I've made my decision. I'm done. I've raised some money. Guy had raised quite a bit of money by the standards of money
At
raising
that time.
then. Yeah. To build a marketplace business. Okay. Where? In Nairobi. What is it? Cars. And that was the first scalable car portal here. It was Checky.
Checky.
Yeah. So the late Carrie Ayrton, because
Yes, I had.
That-
I mean, there was a tragic thing that happened.
Correct.
But
Exactly. Yeah. So Carrie, so
it is
he
what it is.
so he moves here first. So when he moves and he starts kind of, building a proper two-sided marketplace. I mean, I'm still looking like a novice with my property portal, job portal, but he's got some really good cash that he's raised. He's also exceeded his options. So he comes and kind of starts to build a serious marketplace. This is 2011.
Yes.
And so my friends from Naspers, I think see what Carrie is doing, and I think they meet somewhere and they
So
want.
again, let's step back a bit and spend a few minutes talking about what Naspers is and what they have achieved. Then we can come back to that story.
Correct. Naspers, I think the largest corporate venture capital firm in the world, and probably one of the biggest investor to ever come from this continent in technology. And I think one more description is probably the only media house or newspaper company that I know that has disrupted itself twice.
Wow. So it is possible for an incumbent to completely reinvent itself.
Absolutely.
For the future. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Please proceed.
And I think just to put the magnitude, they still own, I think, about 30% of Tencent. And kind of
WeChat.
Tencent, which
This
is WeChat,
is,
WhatsApp of China.
Yeah, for my audience that may not know what WeChat is, it's one of the most vibrant and interesting social platforms in China, with 600 million users plus today.
Market capitalization, I think now about 100 and or 200 billion, I think.
So Naspers, a South African conglomerate, bought the parent company of WeChat, which is Tencent. At some point, they had owned
about 40%, I think.
Yes, they had owned 40%, which completely transformed the way they look at internet businesses. and gave them, more importantly, gave them the funds to actually launch Process. I think
Process,
today.
yes. Yeah.
Process, which is
listed in
the largest corporate venture capital platform that invests in technology across the world, not just Africa.
Correct.
So Naspers.
Yeah, so they're here launching, I think, building Dealfish. And our friend Moses, I think, is kind of the early...
yes, our brother and good friend Moses Kemiparo.
Yeah, yes. Correct. Yeah, so they reach out to me. Reach out to Kari, I think, wanting to join hands. I think they're more interested in trying to get more talent.
Correct.
But I don't think he's interested because he's racing his cash. He's much more experienced. Also, I think, investor. So he knows when to kind of get into deals and when not to.
Yes.
So they turn him down, and then then they ask him, "Hey, do you know anyone else who understands this kind of space?" There's some dude down under who I've worked with before. Maybe you reach out to him. So they reach out to me. Not interested because I don't even know them. I don't know who they are. I even think it's a scam. But then the only time I start to gain interest now is when I see there are some guys who are almost buying the entire search engine for every time we're trying to grow a property or job site. These guys who are always appearing on top, called Dealfish. So I didn't know that it was Naspers.
It was them.
So one day, like after 3 months, them trying to contact me, I decided, I'm going to talk to these guys. So I talk to the guy and they tell me they are the ones who are doing deal. And then I'd connect the dots. Right.
So what's the lesson there about ignoring people who reach out to you? Of course, there are many scammers in this world, in this digital world today. But as I keep on telling my friends, my partners, family, for you to glean that nugget of gold, you've got to go through a ton of rubbish.
Exactly.
What's the lesson there for you?
First lesson is that the medium to actually get people to find you completely changed. You'll never get a letter through the mail. And
I have a PO box which I really hardly look. Even when somebody sends me a box, they will always email me anyway.
Correct. So people who probably want to engage you will engage you through the dominant platforms. We know that the professional dominant platform is LinkedIn. So, and maybe a few others are coming through. So don't ignore that's kind of your mailbox.
Yes.
So that's kind of a very big lesson. So when I talk, that's when I realize, okay, this is big. Okay. So we start talking.
Still in Aussie.
So guys are telling me, okay, we're interested in putting together some talent, and then they say, look, we are just looking for a few individuals who can make us go out and dominate the world of classifieds. We are so sure that this thing is going to end. Newspapers are no longer going to be where people go looking for stuff to buy or sell. So that's what we are asking, whether we can team up together. So I tell them, okay, here, I got these things that I'm already running. What do you think? So they ask me, what do you want for that? So in a long conversation, takes about 2-3 months. Finally, I find myself here in Nairobi, running Dealfish.
They buy your digital businesses.
Well, somehow we get some agreement on what that means, and pedal back to the.
So what they did is basically what we now in tech call acqui-hire.
Something like that.
Interesting. So, viewers, acqui-hire basically is the meshing together of two words, acquisition and hiring. So in the tech world, some of the big boys, when they want to hire key talent in the startup ecosystem, and the only way to get these entrepreneurs to be interested is to hire them and acquire their businesses at the same time. So they give you money for your business, and more often than not, that business is literally collapse into that new business or even shut down. But their main interest is the talent, hence the term acqui-hire. Yes, brother, continue.
Yeah, exactly. And then at the same time, Dealfish was kind of the local brand here. I think Uganda, but then Naspers has high ambition, and they've bought off OLX from some founders in Argentina, and they want now.
OLX was originally Argentina.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the two founders are like today some of also the most brilliant investors I have seen. The two founders of OLX. So I think one who is kind of more known by the media is Fabrice.
Okay.
Fabrice he runs a serious angel investing network.
Okay.
And it's no longer looks like an angel; it looks like a mega VC, but he just keeps calling it that. Okay. But no, they become extremely powerful investors in the digital space. So they acquire that, and then we're sitting in and so we start now to talk about rebranding the whole thing.
Okay.
So I'm here 2012, then 2013 we're going to rebrand the whole thing. So we're sitting somewhere in Cape Town, and the Koosbeker, the chairman of Naspers today, who was the CEO then,
yes,
says something that I'll never forget. He says, look, we only have a very small window of opportunity here.
Correct.
This newspaper stuff is closing. We are no longer going to have people looking for houses, looking for jobs, looking for cars and newspapers. So for us here, it's a land grab opportunity. We are going everywhere except in Europe, Western Europe, and the US.
Wow. Insights, eh?
No, yeah. I mean, like, this is a South African company. And the guy tells us, he puts together 25 GMs and says, we're going for a land grab across the world, except the US and Western Europe. Everything else is for the grab. And by the way, I think he also does a bond specifically for that.
Wow.
So when we talk about, CEOs and industry leaders, when you get the insight that the only way out is to actually disrupt yourself, there's a signaling. There's a signaling here that you give your troops about how serious you are.
Absolutely. I think those insights, Peter, are some things that some of the stuff that we still don't really appreciate.
Yeah.
And by all intents and purposes, I think that land grab still exists in Africa.
Yeah.
It still does. It would take, I don't know what it would take to, to start actualizing, grabbing those opportunities.
Yeah, so that's kind of now, so for 6 years, I'm putting together probably the most scalable marketplace ever, I think, in terms of investment here. I also help set up in Ghana, Uganda. I help out quite a bit in Nigeria in the early days. Okay. Then we have a substantive country manager there. Help out in Egypt. Again, Egypt was a very interesting case because then it starts to spread also into Lebanon and Middle East around there. So the 6 years I spent just kind of seeing a new world, investing cash in quite a situation where the internet penetration was still very, very low.
Yeah.
And by 2018, when we were getting together with my co-founder, Leslie, the world.
By the way, I was a bit sad that Leslie could not make it today.
She couldn't make it today.
But Leslie also has an interesting story to tell, so I will still be on her case to join us in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're getting together and we're wondering, okay, can we just take a step back where we're coming from? Because I feel like I've been running, I've been chasing something for the last 6 years, and the world has actually changed in those 6 years.
Yeah.
Those education videos and TV ads that we've done, something has changed. And by the way, that particular moment happens to be a landmark if you look at the trajectory we are talking about.
Yeah.
You have this era of, iHub, which is kind of around 2004, 2007, and largely tech investments are driven almost by NGOs or an NGO kind of mentality. And then you have these little things that people are trying to do. If it's my blogs that I was buying, building stuff, right? Really no scale because there isn't a lot of cash to actually start spreading them.
Correct.
And the internet penetration is still in single digits. So the early adopters and the innovators are still pretty much very, very tiny.
Correct.
Then you have this moment where you have about 3 or 4 players. And by the way, also, let's not forget that 2007, 8, 9 moment is also the time we are laying down the cables.
Correct.
Okay, the Teams cable.
Correct.
If you look at that moment, is when the cables are going around the continent. Yes. And then 0, 12, 13, you have Rocket Internet starting to do its Jumia and all the other stuff.
Yes.
You have Naspers also with OLX.
Yes.
You have
so interesting activities going on across the Pan-African
landscape. And you start to see new talent being kind of being brought up that starts to understand tech and consumer tech at scale.
Yes.
And then you also see them start to want to get out around 2017. They're starting to wonder, hey, we have been here for 5 years. What we were expecting maybe is not happening, which actually talks to some principle we've talked to you with you about the S-curve, and how we almost always tend to overestimate what can be achieved in the short run.
What technology can achieve in the short run.
In the short run, we overestimate that, but underestimate what can happen.
That's Amara's law.
And you can see that exactly within the context of what happens within, the likes of Naspers, the likes of Rocket Internet. Almost all investors are caught up by Amara's law at one point in time. And so when I reflect now in 2018 and I look at the internet penetration, smartphone penetration, I say, whoa, I think we are just about to enter the real golden era. Because when you also look at the payments, we've moved away from talking about kind of M-Pesas, these innovative thing. It's now a mainstream thing.
Correct.
You start looking at what people used to say logistics is a problem, properties are not mapped, and you can understand they're talking from the past, because with a GPS, why do you need to be told that there's a house number 1?
You don't. I mean, if you just go to Google, the Google Maps, there's that those numbers that you can't make out. That's your digital address. So sometimes I laugh at all these initiatives, the national digital addressing system, and I'm like, wait a minute, guys. Mobile telephony allowed Africans to leapfrog. And now here, we have governments across Africa still struggling with an addressing system. Dude, We've moved on.
It
We've
sounds
moved on.
exactly. It sounds like that moment of the booth.
Yes.
That building more booths while mobile telephony is launching.
But, I can see my producers telling me you're running out of time, but I'm going to ignore them for another 10 minutes.
Okay.
So that we go to what you're doing now.
Correct.
This conversation, this is super interesting.
Yeah.
But, time is finite.
Okay. Yeah. So now it comes to Gobeba.
Yes.
So what is our moment of truth? Well, everybody for those like 5 years, 012 to 017, is trying to get folks to buy stuff online. And Leslie and myself are asking ourselves, hey, wait a minute. We can understand the phones, we can understand the TVs and whatever you online. But what about the basics that people struggle with on a day-to-day basis? And the process of getting those things is extremely inefficient, actually very inconvenient. And we start talking about gas, water, those bulky things. And we say, hey, maybe there's a category here that has not been defined, but it's almost ties to the Amazon and books moment of a category that fits remote commerce.
Correct.
So much that already people exercise it, but in a way the experience is not that great and has not been scaled up.
Yeah.
And that's where we start looking at cooking gas, water, these bulky things. So we find is that already, people have my border guy somewhere who brings that stuff. So they're already exercising what you called earlier, commerce. We call it remote commerce, that I already call someone. So we start thinking about, okay, what is there to be fixed here? And one of the things that we do is to do a quick survey of how long it takes when you get your cooking gas and when you actually have to need another one. And we find there's actually quite a lot of diversity in that timing, so that you find some people might take 3 weeks with their cooking gas, others take 6 weeks.
Right.
We observe the guys who take 6 weeks are the guys who get the gas from the station, and the guys who get like 3 weeks are the guys who get gas from these other small.
Wait a minute. So it's not about usage?
No.
It's about, let me just call it as it is.
Yes.
Pilferage at source.
Exactly.
Are you for real?
Yes.
What the hell is going on with people's?
Yeah.
So you are basically telling me,
Yeah.
if I buy my gas at a renowned branded petrol station, and if I call my border guy,
Yes.
and he goes and refills
somewhere yes.
that I do not know, miscellaneous place, I probably get 30 to 40% less of gas.
Exactly. In fact, it's not even about.
Is this empirical data that you have?
I mean, like the LPG market, as we get into it, we start really understanding the insights. I mean, it's 150 billion business in Kenya today, growing at 10-12% a year. It's probably one of the fastest growing business, maybe next to potatoes because of urbanization.
Potatoes. Warus.
Now,
interesting.
There are three aspects that probably a lot of consumers don't know. So the first one, it's pilferage. That some of the guys even put a bit of concrete in the cylinder so that you can. The weight can be the same.
My God.
Yeah. Two,
you've done your homework.
Yeah, we've done our homework. I mean, it was one of the scariest moments when I started to understand what goes on behind the scene.
Wow.
You talking about cylinders that have been made by a metal that is so thin that it can lipuka anytime.
So there's also a safety issue.
It's a big safety issue.
Wow.
Because you have these illegal refillers.
So what is Gobeba doing
Working.
to
fix this?
To fix this.
So therein now lies in why digital is an important aspect. First of all, is that we start from the basics of, okay, we'll get you the right cylinder to your house. And we are working directly with the brands.
Okay.
All the major brands, we work with them and we make sure that the gas is coming right from their depot.
Wow.
And one of the other things we will be doing and launching is a tech to ensure that there is a cylinder exchange has pretty much integrity. That what you bring as a consumer to exchange already has a serial number according to the laws, but you're exchanging with another one that has a serial number that is coming from a brand.
I think I need to connect you with a friend of mine who's doing some work in that space.
Okay.
SafeTrack.
Okay.
They're doing some interesting work on what they call asset integrity. So
asset integrity.
So that meshing, that conversation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm fascinated. I mean, I've known you for many years, but I have not really drilled into the Gobeba concept. I'm getting it now, and I hope my viewers will also get the same. Peter, we're coming to the end of this conversation today, but it gives me a great opportunity to have Leslie in, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So that she can continue with this conversation on the future of what you are doing now. But I would like to just close it now by asking you to sort of be a digital, I'm trying to find the right word here, a digital prophet or wizard, and look into the crystal ball of commerce in Africa. In a few words, talk to me about that. Where do you see this going?
So when we talk about that we've just started, that it's 3 a.m. in the morning, people sometimes underestimate that statement. But we just talked here about like the last 10 years or 15 years or so, which was kind of just the beginning. Now, let's look forward. We've got probably 3 technologies that are coming together, and they will redefine a lot of how things happen.
Which are these technologies?
We've got the internet is still going to be dominant.
Correct.
It would redefine a lot of things. But you add a layer on it, which is fintech.
Yes.
And these days, even us, we are already starting to speak about fintech as a layer on top of Gobeba.
Correct.
Because gas is an emergency item.
Correct.
So some people, especially the low middle class, might just know the gas has run out, but they need to kind of get some lending.
Yes.
So definitely there will be some integration.
So you are layering that.
Layering that as embedded finance. You've got then, of course, the cliche of the moment, AI. And I think we can't belabor the point.
No, we don't need to belabor the point.
We don't need to belabor it. That those 3 coming together, and I think AI is a little bit broader, including robotics.
Correct.
I think we will see significant leapfrogs, the same way we saw that leapfrog you spoke about on mobile telephony, people trying
mobile
to think
money,
mobile money. I think this is going to be significant. And I think it is what is going to define how wealth is created in their continent.
Wow. Peter, I wish we could continue. I mean, talking to you is always super fascinating. But we're coming to the end of this conversation today. I am hoping that in the next coming months, we can have further conversations in a group about this.
Yeah.
Viewers, we're coming to the end of episode 1, season 2 of Ali Talks Tech with my brother, Peter Ndiang'ui. He's given us, snippets of where he's come from, how the commerce or e-commerce industry is heading. He's then encapsulated everything into where he sees tech going from a Pan-African perspective. Thank you very much. This is Ali Hussein of Ali Talks Tech.